whether you're in pest control, HVAC or plumbing, and the reviews that you may or may not be receiving are not reflecting the services you're actually providing, this is the type of agent that you actually need.
Thanks. How did everything go with the recent visit? Was the work completed to your satisfaction?
Yes, it was good.
Perfect. Is there anything you felt could have been done better, or any part of the service that didn't quite meet your expectations?
Maybe if you were a bit clearer on when the technician was going to arrive at the property.
Got it. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate the overall quality of the service you received?
I'd say it was an 8.
Thanks. Is there anything else around the property we could help you with, whether that's a follow-up visit or a different service entirely?
Now, obviously, what I've just shown you here is a working demo, but it's something that I have already built for several home service businesses, from pest control, HVAC, and also in different industries. So what will happen now is that end of call report is going to be sent to this webhook, and all the data then is going to go through this workflow, and then the data is going to be extracted into the Google Sheet. So if we just go back here, as you can see, all the data from that call has now been stored in the Google Sheet, ready for reference from the company. So this is how the agent works. It runs on 2 workflows. The first workflow is where you will execute the call, and then the second workflow is when all the data will then be logged within the worksheet. When you're ready to run the batch of calls, you essentially just click this node here, click execute workflow, and it will run through all those calls automatically for you. Then we move on to the first real action of this workflow, which is a get all contacts node in a Google Sheet. What this does is read every row as a separate item, which runs through the workflow. So if we move forward here now, we go into the filter, which is the not called yet filter. In this filter node, the filter essentially looks in the worksheet, sees if the column called is set to no or yes. If it's set to no, then the call will be sent out. But if it's set to yes, meaning that the contact's already been called, then it will hit a dead end at this point. So moving forward, then we have a set node again, which is on this occasion is called prepare call data. So the contacts that pass through the call nodes will then hit this node. This node is essentially a preparation step for the rest of the workflow. So the data that is prepared in this node is the company name is extracted from the worksheet. Then we have the phone number field, which if you just look at this code quickly, what this essentially does is it standardizes the phone number, which is in the Google Sheet, into the UK format, which is +44. This can be modified depending on what area code you are. And essentially what this does is it just prepares the number for what VAPI is expecting. So if we just come out of this, the final thing is the row number, which is extracted. So the reason why the row number is extracted is because we need that row number in the final node to know which row that needs to be updated in the Google Sheet. Then moving forward, we have the VAPI outbound call, which is a HTTPS module. What this actually does is it just sends a structured message to VAPI's API, making a request to make that actual call that we need to get the review. So in this HTTPS request body, what it's actually looking for, it uses the assistant ID, which tells VAPI exactly what agent needs to be used. It uses the phone number ID, which is the phone number which VAPI will use to send the outbound call, and also the customer's phone number and name. So moving ahead, then we have this update Google Sheets node. So once the call goes through, the called column is updated from a no to a yes, indicating that the call has already been made. And when the list goes through again, the client won't be getting double called, which is not ideal. So that was the first workflow. Moving on to the second workflow. This one starts differently to the previous one. The first node here is a receive VAPI webhook. So essentially what this does is once the VAPI call has ended, the data that's been collected in the VAPI call is sent to a specific URL, and that URL is this production one here. So what you want to do is copy this URL. So I'll just click copy here. And then if you go over to your VAPI agent, go to the advanced section, down to messaging, and then you just want to be pasting that URL in the server URL in VAPI. So moving forward, we then have this node here. So the reason for having this node is because VAPI sends different data at different points. And what we want to be doing is waiting until that call is completely finished. Once in VAPI, when that call is finished, it sends something called an end of call report, which just means that all the data from the call will be in that sort of package. And this node here is just filtering for that. So if we see that the end of call report has been sent through, then it can continue down the workflow. And if not, it will just be stopped. Again, it'll be like a dead end. Then we have another set node, which extracts call data again. So the call data that comes out of this is again the phone number and the row number. And the reason that we do this again is just so that the workflows are staying in sync. And then moving on to this JSON node. So this is probably the first scary looking node, but there's nothing to worry about. What this essentially does is it takes the full call transcript from VAPI and then breaks it up in a structured way in order to build a prompt in ChatGPT. So basically, you're just telling ChatGPT exactly what data you want from that call transcript. The data that I have asked it to get from the transcript is these fields here. So I want a satisfied field, additional help field, a score field, improvements field, and then if the call goes down a separate path where the caller wasn't the right person at the time, we want to collect a reference name, a reference phone number, and also a reference email so that we can just call them back. This HTTPS module sends the request to OpenAI's API. So if we just think of this node as we've handed off the call recording to a trained assistant, and then they will just fill out a form for us. So what we want to be doing is just essentially just feeding the request body from the previous node into this one, and we should be getting back all the structured data that we want in order to update the Google Sheet. We then have another code node which just cleans up the data that comes from the OpenAI request node. So for example, when someone gives their email, the format that they give that email in sometimes is transcribed exactly like that. So for example, gmail.com will be written out as gmail dot the word and then com. So we essentially just want to format that data into what we are expecting as sort of a standardized email. So we're taking that raw spoken data in and then cleaning that data and sending that back out. Moving on, we then have another get rows node. This node, again, just makes sure that we are updating the correct row in the Google Sheet. And then that directly links into this next update row. This is where we write all that data that we have extracted from the call transcript, formatted in the right style, and then update it in the correct column in the Google Sheet. We are getting the correct row number, and then the data that's been extracted from the transcript is then taken from the past GPT feedback response node, and then we update all these fields in the Google Sheet. Moving on, Once all that data has been updated in the Google Sheet, we then have an optional step of sending an email follow-up with that client. So going into this node, we basically take the email from the Google Sheet that we should already have stored. We set a subject of the email, and then we send a personalized message. So this is just something quickly for example. So obviously we'll have to format this a little bit more. And if you set up a Google business account as well, you can also paste in a link that you can fill in a Google link directly. If you found this video useful, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll be putting videos out like this more regularly. I'll see you in the next one.